Welcome, listeners, to the true iteration of That's a Good Card. We're back today, where Ya will have the challenge of getting me to say, that's a good card. While Ya will be doing the convincing, I'll be playing Devil's Advocate. Also, make sure to stay tuned for our award-winning, multi-award-winning, That's a Good Card, ? Segment at the end of our podcast for some extra fun. Yes, we won awards for it. We won a bunch of awards. If you ask what award, the answer is all of them.
All of them.
Because it's the best segment ever created. Anyway, Ya, let's get started. What did you bring to the table for us today?
Thanks, Kyle. This week, I brought to you a card that was actually a suggestion from one of our listeners. They go by @BoxerBiker4672 on YouTube, and I think they are also a member of our Discord. And if you're not a member of our Discord yet, please join and come find games and like-minded people that are really into CEDH and Magic and generally nerdy things altogether. But his card that he suggested was Tishana's Tidebinder. Tishana's is a creature merfolk wizard for 2 generic and a blue, and it's a 3-power 2 toughness creature that has flash. When Tishana's Tidebinder enters the battlefield, counter up to 1 target or activated triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tishana's Tidebinder remains on the battlefield. So what does that mean? I said a lot of words. Mana abilities can't be targeted, so it can't target mana dorks or anything like that, and mana rocks. So I said a lot of words. What that all basically means is that this has a Pithing Needle-like effect. Pithing Needle is also an artifact that basically shuts down a creature, or in this case, it'll shut down creatures or any artifact or planeswalker, where basically that card is now kind of useless as far as its ability goes. And in Magic and in CEDH specifically, we play a lot of creatures and artifacts and planeswalkers that we want to abuse, right, in terms of trying to further our game and shut down our opponents. So I think this card is a good card because the very first thing that it does that I think has it going for it is that it is a creature spell, right? And as we've talked about before, unless you're running a good card like Stern Scolding,
yeah, baby,
which that would hit this card, you're gonna be a little bit hard pressed to potentially interact with this card, and then you're holding up mana to flash this card out, so you're using it to kind of stop somebody's win. And I think that this is very much a counter spell, right, on a body. And I love that. The other thing I really like about it, the second point, is that it sticks around and it has a lasting effect, right? Yep. It will hit cards like, and the cards that off the top of my head, I've listed a few, is Tshana and Crom, right? The meta deck in the game right now, right now. It stops Tshana from drawing extra cards, right? And then after that, it'll stop it moving forward until you can remove Tishana's. Crom, same thing. You wait for the Crom trigger to happen, you flash this out, it stifles that trigger, and then it stops it from every other trigger that happens until you can either bounce that Crom, right? So it needs to be removed, in which case the opponent has to play it again, or they have to waste a removal spell on Tshana, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a weird card in a sense that, like you said, it's kind of like a Pithing Needle, but it's also like a Trick Bind. So when you're describing this card, it's kind of like a mix between Trick Bind and Pithing Needle.
Correct.
Where it has that reactionary feel of Trick Bind as like a counterspell, whereas Pithing Needle does not, right? So Pithing Needle is more of a proactive play where you proactively have to play it before a trigger, and a triggered ability is on the stack. You have to play the Pithing Needle before, whereas Trick Bind and Tishana's Tidebinder, because they have flash, can actually stifle the ability. No pun intended. Stifle is also a different card. It's funny because that you mentioned that it's kind of like a Pithing Needle too, because I play in my Gandalf the White deck Pithing Needle, and I can give Pithing Needle flash. So it kind of makes Pithing Needle into Tishana's Tidebinder, which is really funny. It's like the same thing. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
What I think is really kind of cool about it, the more I read this card, and it is a lot of text, right? Like creatures are getting way crazy, is like
We love walls of text and CEDH, baby.
With a card like Kinnan, right? Like Kinnan also has a bunch of text, and when you flash it out, you can flash it out to only try to stifle his when you tap something, right? It is a triggered ability. We've talked about this before, right? Because it says whenever you tap a non-land card for mana, like add one more, right? So this would stifle that effect. And then the rest of the paragraph says also, hey, look, if you counter one of those abilities, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tshana remains on the battlefield. So now cards like Kinnan, Najeela, Tymna, Krom, Tivit, right? Tivit has a ETB trigger, right? So if you flash this out, now Tivit loses his abilities for the remainder of time that Tshana stays out there. And I think that's...
Yeah, and the same with Tivit's on attack, right?
Right, yes. Because it loses all of its abilities. It basically just becomes a creature out there with power and toughness, and that's it until you can either, again, remove your own creature, have it removed so that you can recast it, because it will be a new target, right? It will be a new creature or artifact or a planeswalker once it comes back into the playfield. Like Tshana won't remember, like, hey, that's the same card. Like, it doesn't work like that in Magic.
Yeah. And it's also important that we also explain to the listeners that a really important aspect of this card is that it reads at the end that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tishana's remains on the battlefield. And that's important for those creatures that have multiple abilities, right? So you can play it in response to one ability that a card has, and not only will it stop that one ability, but for the remainder of the time that Tishana's is resolved on the battlefield, it will stop any other ability that card has. Very important differentiation between something like Stifle, right? Where it's just stopping one activated or triggered ability.
And in a format with so many big heavy hitter commanders now, right? Like more getting printed. They're printing some really cool, crazy cards. People are playing Talion, right? Talion gets stopped now. It doesn't get to be its Rhystic Study. Notably, this doesn't hit enchantments or like Rhystic Study or Mystic Remora. I think that would really push this card over the top to being a really crazy good card. But the fact that it hits artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers. If you listen to the last episode, right, Kyle talked about a card called Manifold Key. This would stifle that, and it would lose all of its ability. It could hit the One Ring, right, which we have also talked about how broken that card is. I believe now that is the 8th time we've brought up the One Ring since we started this whole thing. And so,
wow, and it's crazy. We have 8 episodes. That's so crazy.
So it really kind of stops that.
And before you move on, I do also want to point out something that is kind of relevant, but not super relevant to what you said, which is that I believe if I'm reading the card correctly, it technically can counter a Rhystic Study or Mystic Remora trigger.
Correct.
But it doesn't keep countering them, which is super key. So technically speaking, you could use this to stop a singular draw. Now, whether or not that is good or not, you probably should not do that.
Because, Rhystic Study only draws one card.
Yeah, exactly. That you could be playing Kinnan, you have this in your deck, and you're about to win the game, and somebody, hits you with a Rhystic trigger, and instead of, just paying it with your infinite mana, you could say, I'm going to flash into Tishana's Tidebinder and counter that Rhystic trigger instead.
Yeah. Yep.
Not relevant at all, but I did want to make that point.
I mean, I think it is really important, right? It does kind of add some more.
You'll never do that.
You'll never do it, but it does add to more layers.
You can.
Right? More layers of what it does, right? This card would really hose my Najeela, right? If I'm going with the Najeela Beats plan, it really kind of hoses that. I think, again, the last point I was going to bring up is that this can really stop one of the most efficient combos in the format in Thassa's Oracle, right? This actually stifles it, and now that poor soul doesn't even get to do his scry of 2, and where brutal, right?
You don't even get your scry. No soup for you.
Another combo that it could kind of stop is a Isochron Scepter / Dramatic Reversal, right?
Ooh, an old school combo. We don't see that too often anymore,
Yeah, no, it
I say old school as it wasn't just like a couple years ago. In CEDH a couple years ago just seems like an eon ago.
It also stops Corvold from doing its thing, right? Going back to my other point about
you don't have to tell him. Don't tell him.
Corvold would lose all of his abilities.
We don't need to tell people that this can absolutely destroy Corvold players. No, yeah. Stop.
Also stops 2 of your combos in Corvold.
Cut the video. Cut the video.
It stops your Wither Smog Apprentice. Wait, what is it? What is it called?
Yeah, Wither Smog, which is Wither Apprentice plus Chain of Smog. Chain of Smog, yeah.
Right. You stifle. You Tishana's the Witherbloom.
Magecraft. Yeah.
Magecraft. And then you could also hit the Dual Caster Mage Twin Flame combo. Right. You wait and hold. I think it stops that actually. Yeah, actually it does, right? Because you flash in the dual caster mage, you flash this in on top of it to stifle that effect, so it would not be able to copy anything. Twin Flame would do its thing on the original spell, and then you got nothing. So
you will still get a two dual caster mages.
True.
I think 2. No, you'll get the original copy plus a dual caster mage. I think. I don't know. Comments correct us if we're wrong.
I don't think it does. Because it would stifle, so it wouldn't copy it, so you wouldn't get a copy of Twin Flame to copy the dual caster, right? Because
no, that's true, but I guess I'm making the assumption that you're casting Twin Flame on another creature that's on the board, playing dual caster on top of it, so you'll get Twin Flame will still resolve. You'll still get a copy of whatever you're targeting,
a Dockside or whatever it is.
And then your dual caster will still resolve. You have a 2/2. All right. Yep. Anyway, comments tell us if we're wrong,
please. But yeah, those are my 3 points on why I think Tishana Tidebinder is a good card. Kyle, what say you?
What say me? Well, I say that this is a really bad card and definitely don't play it against Corvold ever. Cut the video. No, I'm just kidding.
That's it. That's the only thing.
That's it. That's my piece.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, to be honest, when you brought this card up to me, and when our listeners brought this card to our attention, I already said, look, I want to be the one who is bringing this to the table because I think this card is broken. So once again, I'll be, trying to play devil's advocate while also being biased and think that this card is very good. But let's try to play devil's advocate. The first one I'll bring up, which is a classic hater Kyle trope, which is that this is a stop other people's from winning card and not necessarily a I win card. So as the turbo player I am trying to do everything and include everything in my deck that helps me win. And it's really difficult for me to want to play reactive or play table police. I think this is a table police card. So in a deck that is control heavy for sure, think about this card just because, part of your win condition is stopping other people. But I think you would be hard pressed to play this in any deck that wants to play moderately fast. And the reason why is just because you can simply make cuts for cards that will help you win faster. This card does not help you win faster. This card may stop you from losing, but it does not help you win faster. So that's my first point. Do you have a rebuttal against that point?
I do not necessarily. I do think that in my brewing of this card, when I was looking at where I would potentially slot something in, I actually did slot this card in Kinnan to just try to test it out. And I think I removed some counterspell. I don't remember what it was.
Oh,
it
interesting.
May have been,
so you're removing protection.
I was probably moving like...
Better not have been Stern
Scolding.
No.
I might have been testing out Stern Scolding, and I may have removed it for that.
Fair enough.
So, no, that's like, I do agree with you. It is definitely more of a counterspell, protect yourself suite, more in the protect you from losing.
From not losing. Yeah,
not
it's not
losing,
to protect your win. Not to protect your win.
Yeah,
for sure.
No. Not losing definitely helps you.
Eventually win.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. My second point is just the general fact that like holding up 3 mana is a lot. I could definitely see you having this card in your first 7, for example, right? And on turn 2, let's say that you are able to play it. Instead, you could be, once again, progressing your win somehow. Like you could be playing an artifact that helps you draw, or you could be playing another mana rock like ramp that progresses your win con. There's just a lot of other options that you have that help for 3 mana that you can play instead of holding up mana or holding up interaction. I think, and the fact that it also is a blue pip matters too, because I know, especially for like the 5-color good stuff decks, it's sometimes hard for them to even hold up 1 blue pip for some of their counter spells. Not to mention, like, if it were 2 pips, I mean, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole of how hard it is to cast Mana Drain when you're a 5-color good stuff deck. But anyway, that 1 blue pip does matter for holding up interaction. So I think that in decks where you're going to have, 2-color decks, 3-color decks with blue, it's a lot more enticing. But it can be difficult if you're a 5-color deck to try to hold up 3 mana, but not only 3 mana, but 3 mana with blue pip. So yeah, that's my second downside is it's pretty expensive. Just hang back with it. It kind of reminds me of when someone keeps a mediocre like 4 or 5 and they're just stuck with like some mana and an opposition agent, and they're just praying that they can hit somebody with the opposition agent because they were too scared to mulligan to 3 cards, and they're just sitting there just hoping somebody's gonna sack a land or sack something, or tutor rather, so that they can find something. I feel like you might find yourself in similar positions with Tishana's Tidebinder without the benefit of then getting a card from it, right?
Yep.
It doesn't draw you cards, so that could be
cards.
another that could be another downside for me, which is in this meta, if you're playing blue, you're trying to draw cards, right? If you're not playing cards that help you draw cards, what are you doing?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And my final downside that I wrote down was kind of just more of a spiteful thing, which was, why is Tishana's Tidebinder a blue card? Why? Why, Wizards? This would be such a cool card in like green.
White.
Or white.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This card would be so sick in a different color scheme, but unfortunately, it's stuck in blue, which is the best color in Magic already, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion.
So what you're saying is that
whatsoever.
Because blue is already so good, why give it more when it
exactly.
doesn't necessarily
That's my downside.
It doesn't necessarily stack up to the rest of blue?
Exactly. This card would be so sick in green. I would love it for green.
I can definitely see it in green. Yeah. Do you have any other points?
No, and that last point was really weak. It was literally just a slash rant. Why is this blue?
I think that, I'll be quite honest with you, having slotted this card in, I actually thought, yeah, you know what? Maybe Kyle should have done the presentation of why he thinks this, why he's gushing about this card. Because I will be honest with you, I was a little bit, it was the point that you made that I think is the most damning for this card is the 3 cost, right? It is. Yeah. And you brought up another card that I think is kind of like key in being a flash hold up for it is Opposition Agent. And this card isn't as good as Opposition Agent, right? You don't look around the table and go, y'all's holding up 3 mana. One of that is blue. It must be Tishana's, right? Like,
Tishana's Tidebinder.
Right. Underground Sea, untapped, Mana Crypt, untapped. You're probably thinking, I'm going to flash in Opposition Agent. And so you're probably a little relieved when I flash in Tishana's Tidebinder.
That's so funny when you're like, oh no, my game is ruined. I can't tutor.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm just
Tishana's Tidebinder. Oh yeah, I'm totally chill. Sick.
I'm fine. That's great. It hit my Lotho, and I can't make treasures, which is a big deal, but it's not as big as like losing your tutor.
Losing a win con, potentially, or losing a land even,
I think that is the point that I think is the most like, and it is the thing you have to understand about this card if you're thinking about slotting it in is you're gonna find yourself at times going, okay, I'm gonna really get Kyle, but I have to pass with 3 mana open that I could have used in something else. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. And then you may get Kyle, but then Bobby next to you just goes off and wins the game. Even though you sure did get Kyle.
Hey, that's how the game goes. All right, Kyle, what point of mind do you think best supports on why this is a good card?
So I think that the point that you made that sticks out to me and why I like this card the most is what separates it from Trickbind and Stifle, and that's the fact that it is persistent, right?
Yeah.
The fact that it just stays out there on the battlefield and that the effect stands throughout multiple turns. Like for Trickbind, for example, it's sick. It has split second. I'll throw the card up on the screen for those of you who don't know what it is, but basically it's an instant spell for 2 cost. With split second that says counter target activated or triggered ability. If a permanent's ability this was countered this way, activated abilities of that permanent can't be played this turn, right? So it strictly is only for that one turn, whereas Tishana's Tidebinder can last for multiple turns. So it does have a higher ceiling, I would say, because it's persistent. And I like high ceiling cards. I think it's great when a card can potentially be game changing or game breaking. So yeah, I think that's the best point you made. Small aside as well, or small round of applause for the point of it being a creature as well. I love the fact that it's a creature. Creatures are hard to counter. You know, unless people are running Stern Scolding like they should be. Nobody's going to be Force-a-Willing your Tishana's Tidebinder, so you don't have to worry about that.
I'm just trying to imagine where the game has gone if you're like now looking down the barrel of a Force of Will to counter your Tishana. You're like, okay.
Or even worse, a pact. I'm gonna show you a pact on that Tishana's Tidebinder.
The game's going well for you.
yeah. If you have to pact a Tishana's Tidebinder, there's like sad flute noises playing in the background as you're doing it.
All right.
Anyway,
Kyle.
those are the points. Yeah, that's the point. Those are the points that I like the most.
Well, of those points, then, is that point enough for me to have convinced you that this is a good card?
So what's funny is I already came into this episode thinking that this was a good card. I already told the listeners this. What's funny is I think I was actually swayed more away from this card as we talked about it than I was in being convinced. So actually, I'm gonna throw a hot take out here, and I'm gonna say no. I'm not convinced, solely because of how much you helped me think that this is just a worse opposition agent. Now that I'm thinking about it, like I've been convinced this is the most backfire thing ever. I'm sorry, y'all. But you've actually, in trying to convince me that this is a good card, you reverse convince me the opposite.
That's a first for that's a good card. I've been waiting for this to kind of happen where we both talk each other into I will be honest with you.
I know.
I'll be honest with you. As we talked about it, and you talked about it, and I talked about it out loud, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm pretty convincing that this is a card I would say that needs to be pretty heavily tested, right? Like I've only done it in I probably only have like 6 or 7 games with it in, and I think I've only drawn it 3 of those times, and each of those times it kind of sat in my hand, right? And Kinnan specifically, like, and then when I look at adding this to Najila,
and I don't even know if Kinnan is supposed to be a list that this goes in, right? Like I think we can probably both make the decision that like this is probably best for like Italian like deck.
Agreed.
Like a blue control,
true
like,
control.
Maybe Niv. Would you see it in Niv Mizzet maybe?
Maybe, right? But again,
maybe?
like Niv loves it.
Niv has this weird dead zone where when you don't have 6 mana to cast Niv, where you're wanting to do things and you're wanting to slow people down. So 3 mana is actually like right in that zone of like, hey, I have mana that I'm ramping towards, but I don't really have anything to play that's helping me cast Niv. So I could actually see this in Niv.
I could definitely see it there as well. I think the downside is the upside of Tshana is that it's a creature. And Niv, I feel like wants its sorceries and instances, right? Like those spells instead, because that's what triggers Niv.
Besides Niv's best friend, Tandem Lookout.
That's right.
His best pal.
Well, listeners, with that surprise ending to this, I think it's time for us to move on to our award-winning segment. That's good card? ? If you haven't done this before, what we're about to do is I have hit random on the homepage of Scryfall, and I have a card in front of me here that I'm going to give to Kyle, the name only. And now Kyle's job is tell me everything he thinks this card is based on just the name.
I'm ready. I hope you randomed to a card that I don't actually know. We're trying to go for something obscure, right?
Hope so too.
If you random and it's Lightning Bolt,
I should go again.
I don't know what that does. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. That's a tough one. You should give me that.
And listeners, if you would like to play along after I name the card, go ahead and give us your best guess. See if you and Kyle think alike. If you do, geez, that's two people that think alike. That's pretty cool. All right, Kyle, here it is. The card I have for you is Doomsday Specter.
Doomsday Specter. All right. For sure, this is a black card. And I think a Specter is, oh man, I want to say like and I'm really racking my brain here. Like I think I'm like thinking back to like childhood Kyle playing some like older school video games. Like I want to say like in RuneScape there was like this thing called an aberrant specter or aberrant specter, I think.
Abhorrent.
Which was like this abhorrent. Maybe it's that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like this big ghosty thing. So I'm hoping. Ooh, actually the type might be Specter. I'm gonna say that's a creature. It's a black creature type Specter because that's
wow.
the thing. RuneScape taught me something. Okay.
Okay.
Buying lobbies, 200 each. And then I would say that the mana cost for a Specter. I'm thinking of some other like ghosty type creatures, and I feel like they're always like 2 and a pip or like 3 and a pip. So I'm gonna say a Doomsday is like a really heavy hitting word though. So I'm gonna probably say this is like a hard hitting Specter. Let's go that it's a 4 cost, so 3 colorless, 1 black.
Wow.
I'm gonna I don't believe you, but I'm gonna say 3 colorless, 1 black. I will say that Doomsday Specter is a 5/3 flyer that has it's got to have some sort of like, I'm gonna say it like can't be blocked by non-Specter creatures. It's living in the ghost world. That's the flavor text. It says, "I'm living in the ghost world." Quote, Doomsday Specter. It just says, "I'm living in the ghost world."
Shit. Okay.
So that's what I'm going with.
Okay, dude. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. You fucking impressed me. All right. So, Doomsday Specter is creature Specter.
Nice.
Creature
That's
Specter.
it. It's just a Specter, just like I said.
It's just Specter.
Okay. Internet point. Boom.
It is 4 cost. You were dead on, except for it is 2 generic, a blue and a black.
Oh, whoa! It's a Dimir card.
It's a Dimir card.
That's interesting.
Instead, and you were
I would have never guessed.
I'm giving you another point for this one. You said a 5/3. Is that what you said?
I said 5/3. Yeah.
It is a 2/3.
A 2/3.
It's a 2/3. You
That's
got
you got Doomsday-esque.
Oh, well,
it's like Doomsday Specter. I'm thinking like the acolytes of death coming down from the sky, like trying to kill people.
It's because I haven't read you the paragraph here. You ready?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Please. Yes. Oh, we got a wall of text.
It is. It has flying, and then when Doomsday Specter comes into play, return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand.
Oh.
Second ability, ready? Whenever Doomsday Specter deals combat damage to a player, look at that player's hand and choose a card from it. The player discards that card.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem great, but this is like a fun casual card. I like it.
It's a
like
rare. It's a rare. I believe this is a rare.
Okay. Nice. What set was it in? What was it first printed?
Plane Shift.
Plane Shift. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Plane Shift.
Nice.
Plane Shift. The art's pretty cool. It's like this. It's actually kind of weird. It's like gargoyle riding a dragon.
Oh, okay. Nice. We'll throw that up on the screen here.
Right there. Yeah.
And what now? I'm guessing I got the flavor text right. But go ahead and read it out for the listeners.
You ready? There is no flavor text. There's so much text. Just like actually, we didn't cover this. Yeah, we didn't cover this. I didn't give a rating of Tishana's flavor text. Thank you to those who corrected us. Because Tshana has so much oracle text, so much ability text. There's no room for anything else. Same thing with Doomsday Specter. So today I gave you 2 cards that have no flavor text, which I think is kind of a tragedy as creatures get more. I love flavor text. I'm oversaying that word now because I'm trying to make up for using the wrong word the last couple.
It's all good. Yeah. It's all good. Well, I'll let the listeners know, if you ever see us at a Magic Con or something like that, you hand me a Doomsday Specter, I'm going to sign it, "Hey, I'm from the spirit world" on the back.
All right, Kyle. Anything else you want to add?
No, the only thing I will say is thank you, listeners, for listening to today's episode. Please join us in our Discord, which will be linked below. If you're listening on YouTube, thank you very much. Please check out our stream on Spotify as well as our X channel, which is at That's a Good Card.
And again, if you really want to support us and eventually someday see t-shirts with Kyle's artwork of these cards that we make up. Please join, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Let us know what we're doing if you like it, and thanks for joining. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Take care, y'all. Bye.
Bye.